is studying film at film school or at university worth it? Now, if you asked me this question a couple of years ago, I would have told you a strong, firm no. A matter of fact, I would have said, do not even waste your time. But having worked in the industry for a couple of more years, I have a more realistic view on this. And so I've decided to actually put together a list of pros and cons of going to film school. And so let's dive in. In 2018, I had to make the decision of whether I want to go to film school or not. And at that time, I was slightly leaning more to the no, but also I wanted to come up with a detailed plan of both pros and cons at that time, if I needed to go or not. Now, my background was I actually studied computer science at the University of London, and I was graduating. So I already have my whole bachelor degree and I am set to like work in the industry. I did not enjoy it at all. And that was a rude awakening after you've done a whole degree. And so when I quickly did that pivot to the film and TV world, I was like, oh, okay, what is the best way of going about it? So my pros of going to film school at the time was the fact that how I'll be surrounded by other young filmmakers, who are all we're all going to be excited about this whole degree. And I know that the lecturers are there going to be amazing. So we're going to have in-depth lessons about breaking down the various different criterias of what composes of the film and TV world, but also like understanding the subjects, for example, i.e. the producing, the cinematography, the directing, the writing, editing, production designer, all these different roles and niches, and we would have picked which one of those best suit to us over the time. And I'll say my other third point would be I basically did media studies at GCSE levels, and that was definitely my favourite subject. I'll say IT and media studies were my top two. And matter of fact, I'll say with my media studies teacher, he used to give me the keys to lock up. And so that's how much I loved it, and it's a bit sad, but we'll skip that. And so I just knew because of this, I would naturally enjoy this at a degree level. But it's going to be a lot more different because we're all going to be in one room and we're going to be figuring out how to make a film together. And so, yeah, that was exciting to me. The cons for me not to go to film school, actually, I already have a full degree. And the only reason I didn't want to go through that again is simply because I studied, did the work placement, and did not enjoy it. And then if that happened, the same thing with the film degree, I'll be kicking myself. And that would have been, what, 3-4 years of just waste. And then still trying to figure out what I want to do with my life. It's, for me, just sounded way too painful to go through that again. And I just didn't want to go through that. I just wanted to figure it out. And I'll say too, I wasn't keen to spend more money. No, I was not keen to spend more money on another degree. I would say the third one being I was just so ready to work. Like I was itching to work. I was done kind of being in that educational sector. You just get to the point where you get that itch and you're just like, do you know what? This was quite nice then. And I'm done with it now. Especially because it's like you're restarting. It's like you've moved up and then you're taking a couple of years down to like learn that skill. And I was just like, I just want to get over and done with. I'll say the final and the most key one out of the whole list for me is no matter how much you decide to strive for your degree, we all will have to start from the beginning when you work in the film and TV sector. Like your degree does not mean anything, which for me is quite unheard of, especially working in the IT world. Like your degree means something. In this creative world, your degree doesn't mean anything, and doesn't matter if you got a first, a 2-1. We're all gonna have to start as an entry role position. And so I'm like, if I'm gonna start as an entry role position, what is the point? And also, I was figuring out at that time was because you're starting as an entry role position, you're going to be learning. And so I'm going to be learning everything that I generally maybe need to know at that time, being on set and around these amazing top tier industry professionals. The options made sense, thankfully, at that time. And so I pivoted to no film school. So it has been so many years since 2018. We're now in 2024. And so the key question is, has my mind changed? And I'll say, having worked in the film and TV industry over the years, I can now give you a much more realistic overview on whether to go to film school or not, depending on this particular aspect that you're looking for, just to make that final decision for yourself. Now, I have spoken to filmmakers who have gone to film school and the necessity of going to that, and also obviously people like myself who have not gone to film school, but then also navigating the industry as a independent filmmaker and freelancer. And so I can generally give you guys additional pros and cons for both, and hopefully be a key deciding factor of whether you should make that decision or not. Now, I will say, if you go into film school on this basis of you come from overseas and you're looking to complete films, I will say you've got your scholarship, so therefore your studies, your accommodation, your food, and everything in between is covered. And you're coming over to the country to learn all about filmmaking in general. I would say, yes, definitely it is worth it to go to film school, because I have met people who have come overseas for the degree, but then they're also networking with people within this country. It's a definite plus. There's basically no loss. You're not losing financially. The only thing you're doing is maybe spending a few, like 2 years or 3 years within the educational system. I'd say also it could be a scholarship for if you're in the same country, if it's something that you definitely want to go to. Like, I would say absolutely. If there are a form of short courses to go to when it comes to film school, some of them last up to 6 months, some of them a couple of weeks. So yes, you can get that quick, short term certificates or courses that you can complete and be off on your way. But that also can also sit in the cons list of not going to film school, because as a freelancer like myself, I don't need to go to film school. I can literally complete those short courses and be off on my way in 2 weeks. And so it can sit in both. It's just kind of the lesser extremes of the two that you need to take. I would say education can actually sit in both pros and cons, because you can learn from the professors from school, or you can actually get recommendation, like book recommendations from the directors, producers, cinematographers, editors, whoever within that industry, and they will tell you specific courses to go to, because they'll be like, this is the best industry standard, this is what really truly helps you. And so education on both sides, you will still receive both knowledge from the both worlds. I'd say financially, unless you're able to get a scholarship, then sure, it's a pro to go to film school. If you're not, it's an absolute con. It's definitely no pluses to spend money to get an education and to enhance your knowledge on a particular field that you want to work in full time in. And so that was sitting con. A massive advantage that a person who went to film school would have is the ability to experiment and play with equipment, versus someone like me who's a freelancer and has never gone to film school, so I would never have the ability to experiment or work with equipment, or no one had to like break down on the best practice or certain things. I would have to learn that on set, and or I have to seek out those knowledge. I would say also experiment in the sense of playing with certain lenses, or the type of field, or kind of like figuring out your style as a filmmaker is much more advantageous. It definitely a plus. Ad
3 hours later.
Advantageous. Yeah, advantageous. Definitely advantageous to do that. I'll say a mass advantage to going to film school is being able to shoot. And it's basically you are surrounded by, I don't know, 2 years by people who are similar to you, filmmakers who are looking to create short films quickly for X amount of years. And so you've got the team, you've got the equipment, you all are continuously ready to shoot. And so you've got existing networks there. And so for you to shoot and to find people and get those projects made is a lot more easier compared to someone like me who took me 2 years to, number one, develop myself, and then I'll say an extra year of finding people who are similar like me looking to do a project. But it's a lot harder because we're all trying to figure out that time to get things done. And it's for me, through an organization that I was able to do that and find other people who were like minded and things like that. It's definitely hard to do that within your first year, especially someone who, like me, who had no background within the film and TV world, being academic or working in the industry. And so it's pretty much impossible to do that. And so I would say working in the film world, I'm thinking maybe within that 6 months, you'll maybe be able to do that because the modules are targeted, and maybe you would have, if it's not theory based, if it's practical course, then you would have the opportunity to be working on certain things. Now, I'll say the other pro of going to film school is definitely the exposure to equipment. And that means that someone like me, in order for me to access certain equipment, it would need to come out of my own pocket to get certain things done, compared to someone who is in school, who's, I'm guessing, going to be having a studio, and then also the camera equipment and the lightings and the sound stuff just accessible for them to use anytime they want to do when it comes to creating a content. And so they will be able to have quick existing portfolios and able to maneuver in that space. And so it's just one of those where the freeness of using equipment, it's a bit different for the two. Yeah, it's just basically you would have to graft and figure out the best places to go in order for you to have that fun and exploring and learning element in those areas. But I guess at the same time, it is the real world, and it's one of those where I am learning life skills and and basically doing the extra effort, which if you don't go to film school you have to do, or if you graduate from school they would have to do what I've done, unless they were able to access the same niche. That I do not know. Whoever's gone to film school will let me know, but they would have to go to similar to me, like, and seek those knowledge and go out my way of contacting certain places. When it comes to experimentation aspect, that is the most hardest thing that I find currently as a freelancer. And I'm still figuring out the best way to go about seeking that. There's so many new technologies coming out right now. And so naturally you want to get your hands all over it just to go, oh, is this something that I would like to include? Is this something that I could add? What are the best ways of going about it? That is just basically the filmmaker lifestyle, trying to figure out the best places of getting your hands all over a certain product. For me, naturally, I do love tech just because I am an IT girl. You could take me out of the IT field, but you can't take the tech out of the IT girl. And so, honestly, whenever I see the latest tech and things like that, I'm always going, oh, it's like a shiny new object for me. And so, naturally, I want to play around with it and go, oh, okay, is this something that I could add? What are the best ways of going about it? Yeah, I think tech is amazing, especially when it comes to like film and TV world. I'll say, yes, the pro of going to film school is definitely that film school would have existing relationship within the film and TV world. And so therefore you would already have that breakthrough element to certain places. And there definitely are people within the industry are always looking for the come ups. And so going to film school, depend on certain things, so where you've gone, I'd say definitely not a lot of people have an eye on all film schools. And I would say for me as a freelancer, ain't nobody gonna figure out who I am. I mean, the only great thing is I'll be working with them, but I'd say I'm like in the same level as a new, fresh filmmaker. And I'll say, as a graduate person, I'll say from where they are, if they graduate 2 years later, I would just kind of be 2 years in. I'll be now trying to figure out how I'm going to make my short film. So where they are then to me would be they would have 2 years ahead of me when it comes to making their own project. But for me, working in the film and TV world, I would have that already existing connections and relationships. But I would say when it comes to me creating my own independent projects, I would be at disadvantage. So there's both pros and cons in those two aspects. Another pro of going to film school is definitely you would already be surrounded by your colleagues, people who are similar to your age, or people who are excited by the industry and basically learning as much as they can during that short time frame. And I'd say for someone like me who basically went and did like a 180 into a new world, it took me, I would say, about like a year or so just to figure out my friendship group and people within that world. I'll say, yes, I had existing friends from outside that world, but within that world, yes, you would have colleagues, but it's a bit different when you've got day-to-day relationships being on a weekend, you'll go out together and grab some lunch or something like that. And so I'll say definitely it can, from an outside looking in, it could definitely feel lonely, especially because on top of that, you're all freelancers. And so therefore you're jumping on from one project to the next. I think the one thing is, I'll say, as general freelancers, is definitely making that extra effort with the people that you've met and, trying to invite them for a dinner or something adventurous or like a team thing. And I think, yeah, you have to definitely seek that out a bit more, especially the people that you have existing and good relationship on set, is trying to maintain that, which if I realised that at the beginning, I would have done that a lot more. But yeah, I'll say all my other previous points in 2018 still stand today with a bit more insight about a independent filmmaker, their journey within the industry. The other thing I definitely want to highlight is, yes, particular film school may have the fast track to certain interviews just because you might have gone to a specific film school. So yes, that does exist.
The other bit that I definitely want to clarify, going to film school, they would have existing relationships with film festivals. So I'd say maybe they might have 5 under their arsenal. Definitely ask your film schools before you go. So once you finish your short film or short documentary, those will definitely be entered to those film festivals. As well as if you want to do it outside of the film school network with festivals, there are student fees. So you will get definitely a mass discount compared to someone like me as a freelancer who would have to pay the standard rates. There is a place in which you can ask for discounts for the standard price if it goes outside your budget. There's a possibility in an area, but I just wanted to throw this as an extra note.
To finalise this, I will say how to make a decision whether to go to film school or not. I'll say it literally comes down to you. And what you lean on more is the right decision for you. And in 2018, I made both a list of pros and cons. And I would say my cons outweighs my pros. But on top of it, which made the extra nudge for me, was that my heart was more on my cons and not to go. And that's how I was able to formulate my decision. Now, I've listed both the pros and cons out here heavily and in detail from a realistic point of view, but also from my freelance point of view, having worked in the industry. Now, I would say for you, having listed that out, and if there's anything else that you would like to add to the list, please add it. And then I'll say what weighs heavily, what have you listed out more for you, what works for you. But then on top of it, what does your heart also lean for you? Because I think your gut instincts speak for you the most. And I'll say good luck, by the way, for your decision, whether you go to film school or not. I've outlined very clearly your degree does not help you. However, if you're looking to experiment or have that work done whilst your time spent at film school, you can do that. But also, also like me, you are also able to do it away from film school. These two possibilities do exist. I wish you all the best with figuring out what your decision is. It's not an easy one. I'll say definitely speak to a few other people, do those open days or insight days that you can, and I'll say go for it. I think we all have separate journeys on what to do, and do what works best for you and your life. So whichever makes best sense for you, go ahead and do that, and I will hopefully bump into you in the industry. And so I will see you guys around, so take care.